Welcome to the GuestX podcast, where my co-host Brian Amaui and I uncover the latest technologies and human-driven initiatives that are raising customer expectations and forever changing how we define customer experience across a host of industries. If you are passionate about creating incredible content and unique experiences, join us as we talk to leading product and experience experts across the globe and learn about how today's most successful brands are setting themselves apart from the competition. So we're here with Rebecca and Pras, the homeowners of the project. And just, a lot of people are probably thinking to themselves, this is a dream. This is like winning the lottery, right? I mean, but tell us how the project came about, how you were contacted here. And by the way, I should mention, we're sitting here on the back porch of just a beautiful vacation rental with the lake behind us. But how did the project come about?
Well, I can tell you my role in it, which was simply I received several emails from Verbo, I think also Home Depot. I didn't really pay any attention to it. In fact, I thought it was spam. Thought it was phishing or spam or something like that. So I just deleted. And they kept coming in, and I mentioned to Rebecca one afternoon, and I guess this was about a little less than a year ago.
Yeah. Wow, so a whole year into planning.
This is a journey.
Yeah, because we haven't purchased a property a little after Thanksgiving last year. And I mentioned it to her, and she said, "Oh yeah, no, I contacted so and so Brian or someone like that." And it turned out to be a real thing, so Rebecca's to thank for that, for following up on the lead. And we went through a process, and finally, they notified us that we're down to like a couple of properties, one of which is yours, not having any idea what sort of criteria they're looking at or how they decided on this particular house. And then there was like one weekend, it was like a Monday or something like that, we found out that they had selected it.
That's incredible.
And
It's so
it was
funny
just
because
sort of like, yeah.
surreal. Like in the beginning, we were very skeptical. We both are full-time jobs. We have 2 teenage kids. I mean, we have 3 rental properties. So things are pretty busy and pretty complicated. And so even after the first conversation with Brian, I just had all these questions, and it was really more logistically, what do we have to do, and
What's the catch?
There's always a catch.
How much money is put into this?
how much,
Really?
how much
Okay.
time do you need from us? But we didn't understand the full magnitude of what this project was at the time. We just we were like, oh, okay, it's kind of cool. The criteria was something like they wanted a couple hours of Manhattan. They wanted, they had like general criteria.
Yeah.
But honestly, when we got on the phone with me and Brian, it just, I can't explain, things are meant to be. It just felt really comfortable. We just really trusted their intentions and kind of let them guide us the whole rest of the
It
way.
ended up being just like a win-win,
Yeah.
And this isn't, so you've had other second homes or vacation rentals in the past, right? You still do have some others, maybe, around the Northeast. Tell us, when you bought this particular home, I think you said you bought it last November, was the intention, when you bought it, did you look at it and say, okay, we want to, put some money into it and remodel it? Or did you feel like it was, kind of good as you had purchased it and that was the plan going forward?
We, just because I think we've had some prior experience, second home ownerships, specifically renting it, to guests. We bought this with the intention, because of the location, because we purchased it already fully furnished as well.
Yeah.
And didn't really have to do a thing, down to like the dishes and the silverware. Was essentially, it was turnkey, and what we had to do was listing those and the feature, but
Yeah, it was quite turnkey. Really, from a design standpoint, we didn't have to do anything immediately. We knew eventually we would have to switch out some of the more worn items in the house, but we knew we had enough to get it started. So we have a mortgage on this property, so it's very important that we had this fully listed and booked for the start of the spring season.
Right.
And again, because we didn't have a lot of time, it's not like we could have just pick and chose items and set, everything up. But the important things were getting trusted local partners. So the handyman was huge, finding somebody who could be a local resource to us for like projects around the house, who knows like general plumbing, general electrical, could maintain the hot tub, and could be a local resource for our guests.
Yep.
And then nailing like really reliable cleaning company, because the turnovers are huge. I mean, the first thing that people see when they walk into the property is the bed, or no dust bunnies under the
clean?
sofa,
Yep.
or
Right.
the dishes are put away and not left in the sink, like whatever.
No hair in the sink.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
which we experienced as guests ourselves.
Yeah.
And the first cleaning company didn't work out. It was just a lot of house for them, but the second one turned out to be incredible. So it was less about like design and the things that we had to do to get this particular property rented, and more just how to support, the property for our guests.
So now the property has been designed. You guys went through a design process. Walk us through what that looks like, what the end result is. And now looking back, you say, okay, the property used to look this way. Now it looks this way. What's the expectation?
And by the way, a design process with 3 entirely different designers.
I mean,
Right.
Right. I mean, that's just feels risky.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
Is this all going to live cohesively, or is it going to feel like a jigsaw puzzle when we get done? Yeah. Tell us about that.
We didn't know who the designers were going to be. We knew that there was a small army behind the scenes working on various aspects of things. So we did have to take a leap of faith, I think, which really Tiffany, Expedia, allayed a lot of those concerns.
And honestly, Tiffany's been fantastic.
Wonderful.
Throughout the whole
Yes.
We
process.
just trusted in
Yeah.
the beginning
Yeah.
that we were in good hands.
Yeah.
The communication was was just fluid, very responsive, answering questions and concerns that we may have had at the time.
And the coordination between Tiffany and MSL, which is the PR firm for Home Depot. So one of like I wouldn't even say concerns. Again, like being busy is really helpful, because we didn't have time to
Yeah.
Right.
actually be focused on like the stress and anxiety of this project. But Tiffany's partnership with the PR firm for Home Depot gave us comfort that like, oh, okay, so even though it's two, like forget the 3 influencers, it's 2 separate major corporations with
Yeah.
their own.
That's a good point. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. Forget that. You've got Home Depot and Verbo, and they're both in this, and they're both mutually aligned, but in slightly different ways, right? And
Yeah.
so that's another risk. And then you've got your busy lives, right? You've got kids and everything else going on.
Yeah.
But you did have some input as we toured the house, I would guess, because I know one of the designers said that, I think in the master bedroom, that
The
we'll be
beams.
seeing the beams, right?
Mhm.
They specifically mentioned the homeowners really wanted to make sure they kept the beams in the vaulted ceiling, which is gorgeous. And I feel like they've highlighted it.
Yeah.
And I think our viewers will get to see that. But so you had some input. Did you guys walk through the home with them and hear out some of the ideas?
We had slide decks.
Okay.
It was most of it was all of it was really remote, except for a couple of visits that we had with them here.
There were a couple of in-person visits, and they were respectful. They took us through the space. So one time I was able to come up and I had Pras on Zoom. And then, one time he came up and and they would ask questions of like our comfort level on certain things, like
Yeah.
painting those pine floors, which
Yeah.
are like, that's
Not a
no.
chance.
Yeah,
I'm so
no.
happy you didn't pick
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We
They
wanted
are
to-
beautiful.
We wanted to, and it goes for like any sort of property. We wanted to sort of stay true to locale, any sort of historical pieces, that are in the home, and those wood floors, which are, like this wide.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't find those anymore.
Well, and Brian
Yeah.
mentioned it during our intro, the importance of keeping the character of a home,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but while still redesigning with a purpose of vacation rental in mind is hard to do. And those are things I think it's important. Like you said, like there were certain things that you guys felt like was instrumental to why you probably bought this home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Including these, and they weren't, pretty design, but there were, I guess, a dozen postcards, or maybe they were like 5x7s on the wall, and they were all pictures of Laurel Lake behind us,
behind
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
in various stages of history, and we wanted to keep that in the home. And it wasn't wasn't high design. They weren't like fancy photos, but they were able to repurpose them and put them in different parts of the home. So, like the pine floors, being able to not only stay true, but to give our guests an experience that's unique to
Yep.
this house and retain some of that character.
Yeah.
And I think, Brian, we talk about that. That's part of why people have chosen vacation rentals over hotels or more of your traditional lodging is that uniqueness. I think it's important for our industry not to lose that, but also to continue to elevate the guest experience. We can do both. They're not mutually exclusive.
That's what makes vacation rentals unique.
It is.
I admire the fact that designers came in here. They said, let's paint the floors. You're staying unique to the property. You're staying unique to the locale. And that's actually why we gravitate to vacation rentals, is for the unique experiences and the way the house feels when you walk in. And honestly, when we walked into the house, the expectation from the photos that we saw on the bus were, well, let's see what they made.
And they told us we only worked on it for 2 months.
Yeah, we didn't redo the bathrooms. We didn't do the floors.
Yeah.
So we're going, okay, so it's very and we walked into the house.
It was a
and
wow factor.
It was a wow factor.
It was.
So I know we're excited to see how the house performs on Verbo.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk to us a little about that. So where were your rates? So for those of our people watching us who don't know the area, it is a summer market generally, although you get some year-round business. Is that fair?
We do. Unlike, some other locations like Cape Cod, for example, or Florida, where this particular property is located in the southern Berkshires, is it's not just seasonal in the summertime, but there's a number of ski resorts which are half an hour or stone's throw.
Okay.
So you'll get some visitors for there that are into the skiing and the winter sports sort of activities. So we already have rentals for a couple already before all of this happened.
They got a great
house.
deal.
They did get a great
smoking deal.
For in December, now,
Yeah.
next year, is it going to be the same rate? Probably not.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Well, give us an idea. So winter and summer pre-renovation rates,
Yep.
what were you targeting and where do you think you'll be? Obviously we were just finishing it, but where are you targeting to be coming out of it?
So we went on the market with a minimum 3-day rental all year round. So we just really wanted the comfort of knowing we had
No.
rental income to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
And we went in with $495 per night off season and $595 a night in the high season.
Which is, by the way, a steal. I mean, it's 4 bedroom,
5 bedrooms.
It's 4 bedrooms, 6 baths.
4 bedrooms, 6
It's
baths.
a huge house,
It
guys.
is.
It's it feels so big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 4 bedrooms, 6 baths. So in the peak, you were at 600 or so a night. Is that
Just under 600 a night.
Yep.
And so we're going to list somewhere between 800 and 900 a night.
Wow.
For the high season, there won't be as much of an upside on the off season, just
Okay.
because the competitive market
Right.
is
It's more price point. There's more
Exactly.
vacancy.
Yeah.
You can't drive that ADR
You
as
can't
high.
drive that,
Right. That's
but-
more about, but you may see more occupied nights,
that's right.
even though you're not as an increased rate, which can have the same effect, especially if you're not giving up what previously would have been occupied nights. So that's substantial. I mean, that's $200 or $300
Extra
a night during prime season, and then just additional occupied nights during the winter. So I think thinking through that equation. So now having gone through it, our final question. So what have you learned? And is there anything? It's probably too early, but is there anything you would have done different now as you sit back and you look? I mean, it is pretty spectacular, but is there?
I mean, it's hard. I feel like we haven't gone through the house on our own enough to even notice the detail yet.
Got a lot of people.
You have
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a circus.
I think all of the thought that went into the design had like a Verbo home in mind. Like
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
of what they were talking about, the pantry and the waffle. We're laughing about the waffle,
Waffle
maker,
makers.
but honestly, with our other rental properties, that was such a clutch addition to
Yep.
our amenities. I think the only thing that we're thinking through today is just the turnover for the beds. So the bedding is elaborate and it's
Yeah.
multi-layered and it's just lovely shams. But the reality is the cleaning crew has 6 hours from
Yep.
10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to turn over
Yeah.
this lovely, huge home. So something that's like white and easy, so we're already like, okay, we can place the sham with just like a white pillowcase.
Right.
We
Right.
want it to be clean and crisp and fresh and inviting, but it also needs to be practical turnover.
Functional. And I think that's what a lot of people who talk, who watch our show and listen. I mean, there's the idea and the vision, and then there's the reality of what you
Execution.
can, the execution. And you'd rather kind of back down off of, the aspiration to execute well, because if you don't execute, then it all falls short. So I think it's
Right.
an excellent point.
And the guests are going to know.
Right. They are.
When they check in. So
Yeah.
It's about the guests, really, right?
It
They
is.
get that
Yep.
experience.
And you've got the experience, you've got the lake, you've got the
Right.
house, you've got Verbo and Home Depot behind you guys. So congratulations to both of you.
Yes. And thank you for
thank you for
letting you
hosting
into
us.
our home.
Yeah,
Or
thank
into
you
your
so
home.
much.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That's it for this week's episode of GuestX. Be sure to sign up for our email list at guestxpodcast.com. That's guest, the letter X, podcast.com. And follow us on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. He is Mr. Guest Experience Brian O'Malley, and I'm Matthew Loney, signing off and reminding you to always create a customer experience worth talking about.
This podcast is a Hospitality.fm production.